Namaste. In this session, Dr. M. Shubhashree is going to talk to us. She received vocal training from Srimati Rajalakshmi Srinivasan. She pursued her doctoral research under the guidance of Professor Dr. Pramila Gurumurthy. She has been providing vocal support for Bharatanatyam performances of various gurus for the past 17 years. She has presented various papers in seminars and conferences. Dr. Shubhashree is the assistant professor in the Department of Indian Music, University of Madras, for the past 10 years and a research supervisor at the department guiding PhD scholars. Dr. Shubhashree.
Good morning, Vandana, present here. So I'm here to talk on the topic Indian musical instruments, which has more or less comparison between the earlier talks we had. So this is one picture I just wanted to start with. This is taken from the Music and Musical Instruments by the author C.R. Day. Next. So I would just begin with the definition of Sangeeta, which Rajshrivam was mentioning. So Sangeetam is a composite word, not just like we think of today. Sangeetam means it is not just music. So it is a combination of Geetam, a song, Vadhyam, the instruments that we are going to see, and Nrityam. So the verse goes that Geetam, Vadhyam, Tata, Nrityam, Trayam, Sangeetam Uchyate. And I would like to quote a verse from Natya Shastra, which is Patyam, Natyam Tata Geyam, Chitra Vaditra Mevacha, Veda Mantrartha Vachanehi Samam Hyodat Bhavishyati, which means the recital of poetry, performance of dance or the drama, along with songs and instrumental music, are equal in merit to the recitation of Vedic hymns. Okay, so what are the musical instruments? What is the purpose? What could have been the purpose earlier? For entertainment purpose? Initially, we don't find references to the solo performance of musical instruments. Rather, it was just used as an accompaniment to the vocal music or merely a joy, as Sir was telling us. So the depiction of one instrument meant Ananda. That is only for pleasure. So the musical instruments, many authors have the opinion that what could be the origin of musical instruments? The human body itself, just the clapping of hands, tapping of the feet, whatever. So that is given as Gatra Veena. The human body itself is an instrument mentioned as Gatra Veena, which is considered as the primordial instrument. And we have the other Daivi Veena, which is believed to be God-given, and Dharavi Veena, which is made of wood. So as I said before, musical instruments are part of vocal music, just as an accompaniment to vocal music. And we have had references to the royal palaces, kings' courts, where there was an entire section, Naubat Khana. Many of you would have heard this word, which was a house for the instruments. There were regular performers. Even in the Tirumalai Nayakar Palace at Madurai, we have this Naubat Khana, where there were supposed to be 18 instruments they were placed, and there were dedicated musicians who were continuously playing whenever the guests came or visitors came. And we come across the word Melam, which splits into two, Chinna Melam and Periya Melam, which is a word to denote the music ensemble. The Chinna Melam referred to the musicians and the orchestra group that was meant for accompaniment to dance, and the Periya Melam included the Nadaswaram, Tawil, the cymbals, everything. So next one, sir. So for the better understanding of the music, the varied range of musical instruments, we need a classification. So what could be the classification? We have had many texts that talk about the classification of musical instruments. So earlier there were two main classifications, namely the Hastavadyas, which means the instruments that were played with hands, and Mukhavadhyas, that were played using the mouth. And coming to the Tamil literature, we have had similar two broad classifications, such as the Pannisai Karuvigal. Yesterday we had the talk of Dr. Pramila Gurmurthy. She was talking on the puns or the melodies. So Pannisai Karuvigal and Tala Karuvigal. Tala denotes the rhythm. Under the Pannisai Karuvigal, we had this kudal, that is flute, yard, a kind of a harp, stringed instrument. Kudal and yard were grouped under the melodic category, that is the Pannisai Karuvigal, and Parai under the percussive category. There were also various classifications, namely the Tatha, which denoted the string instruments, Vitata, drum, and Tata Vitata, combination of both. Combination of both, which we cannot take in a literal sense, but I can just quote an instrument, Jamdika, which was commonly seen in the Telugu region, that had one cylindrical drum, and inside the drum there was one string, and they also used a stick. They plucked the string as well as they used a string to tap on the other side of the wall. So this was a combination of both string and percussion instrument. So furthermore, classification, charma, instead of the skin of the animals, they had leather, and tantrika, which again denoted the string instruments, and ghana, the metallic instruments. But the major classification what we follow today is from Natya Shastra, which gives the classification into four types: Tatavadyas, the string instruments; Avanad, the group of Vadyas, that is the percussion; Sushira Vadyas, that is the flute, the wind instruments; and the Gana, which I mentioned, metallic instruments. This classification has stood by till date. When talking about classification, I would also like to quote the work Sangeeta Makaranda, where the author Narada classifies the musical sounds as, not the musical sound exactly, the nada, as the nakaja, the sound produced by playing veena strings; vayuja, sound produced by means of wind through the wind instruments; charmaja, sound produced by means of leather through instruments such as drum; lohaja, sound produced by metallic pieces such as cymbals; and shariraja, the sound produced by human throat. Just we were telling, we come across the term sharira veena and midatri isai karuvi, which means the human throat. Next one. So what are the various sources that we come across to have a detailed study of the musical instruments, sculptures? When talking about sculptures, we have, I think we have a speaker for that. She'll be talking about that. But when it comes to musical instruments, there is a large evidence of sculptural references with regard to instruments during the Hoysala's rule. A French author, I'm not sure if I will be pronouncing it right, Jean Deloche, he has written extensively on the Hoysala sculpture. He has done a major research and he has given his observations regarding the Hoysala's sculptural significance. He writes that Hoysala period witnessed some very important changes regarding techniques of tonal variations in drums and also in the development of stringed instruments. Just one or 2 points I'll just mention. The horn, not much represented in early sculpture, is today a carved brass instrument used in temple processions, receptions and public amusements. However, among the Avanadha and Thatavadya group of instruments, important innovations have taken place. The fretted instruments did exist during the Hoysala period. They are described in the musical treatises of 12th and 13th centuries, and the iconographic evidence corroborates the literary sources. He further reiterates the fact, and he concludes that this is a considerable invention which constitutes an important landmark in the evolution of stringed instruments, and we can consider the cordophone represented in the two temples of Belur and Halibut as the true precursor of the modern veena. So yes, commendably given a detailed description about the Hoysala's sculpture. It is available in the net, his paper, so you can go back and check. And we also have the Amaravati, Sanchi, and numerous other examples where we can find the beautiful depiction of various musical instruments with all those tiny details being beautifully portrayed. And coming to inscriptions, we all know various inscriptions, and in Tamil Nadu we are aware of that Kudumiyan Malai, everything. Here I would like to mention one inscription which was decoded in a place called Arachalur. This is a village in Erode district. I have accessed the archaeological document. I just read out it. The document says that about the inscription in the above site, that is the Arachalur, which is situated on the northern slope of Andipare of Nagamalai Hills, is about 150 feet high. This place was also called as Pandir Kuri by the locals, and this can be reached by walk from the small bridge on the boundary of the village. This village is situated 22 kilometers away from Erode on the road towards Kangayam. The inscription in the above site, stone beds are found where the Jain monks lived about 2nd century AD. On the floor of the cavern, some musical notations are engraved along with an inscription mentioning that one Mani Vannakkan Devan Sattan, that is he was the person who has engraved that inscription, has composed the rhythmic syllables. This belongs to the period of transition from Brahmi, early Tamil to the Vattelithu. So this inscription belongs to that period. We find the rhythmic syllables mentioned ta, tai, ta, tai, ta. Tai, ta, te, ta, tai. There are 5 lines. It is interesting that if you read it horizontally and vertically, you get the same set of syllables. They have engraved in such a way that there is no misinterpretation. So this was really fascinating. These are supposed to be the rhythmic syllables for Parai, because we find some rounded drum-like instruments alongside this rhythmic syllables. And the name is also mentioned, Eduthu Punaruttan Maniya Vannakkan Devan Sathan. When talking about sculptures, we will also be reminded of the musical pillars, stone pillars, which many of you would have visited. We have some in Hampi, and in south of Tamil Nadu we have in Suchindram, and in Dharasuram we also have the musical steps. Instead of pillars, we have the steps. So which gave different sound, some equated to the 7 swaras as well. So apart from this, what are the sources? Of course, the literary sources which we'll be dealing with. Apart from this, we also have the ritualistic tradition which was continued as part of the oral tradition. This Bari Nayanam, few instruments such as Bari Nayanam, which is also seen today in Tiruvarur temple, Panchamukha Vadyam, which are being, this Panchamukha Vadyam is also referred in texts as Kudamula. And we have Kailaya Vadyam, Panchavadyam in Kerala. All these stand as testimonies to the age-old tradition. So what are the references to instruments from the various written sources? We find references to musical instruments, various instruments in Vedas, Puranas. I will just mention the names alone. We find references to stringed instruments such as Bana Veena, Karkari Veena, Kanda Veena, Goda Veena. This Banavina was also called as Mahavina. It seemed that it had 100 strings. And we have wind instruments Tunava, Nadi, which is also referred as Nali, and Shankar in Rigveda. With regard to the percussion category, we have Dundubi and Bhumi Dundubi. Bhumi Dundubi is nothing but a pittish duck in the normal surface and a layer of skin, whatever, the leather that was just used to cover, and it was played. So it was a natural instrument that was called as Bhumi Dundubi. And we also find references to Ghata. There are some specific songs which was sang along with the Veena instrument. This was called as Ghata Gayak or Veena Gatin. There are several names which has been described by the various scholars who have been interpreted. And yes, next please. We move on to the Ramayana and Mahabharata. I am just mentioning one or two. In Ramayana, Valmiki's Ramayana, while portraying the picture of Ayodhya, the city is sounding with drum beats of great drums and with the musical rhythmic instruments like the mridangam, cymbals, and with string instruments like veena, etc. And on earth she is uniquely the best city. And in the Sundarakandam, when Hanuman goes to Lanka, and he is having the glance of Ravana's palace, the beautiful description of Ravana's palace. In that we find the Hanuman sees various women, each one holding an instrument and playing on it. We find instruments as Madduka, Pataha, Vipancham, Pana, Dhindima, Adambara. Parallel to this, in Kambaramayana, we find a similar description, not exactly the instruments. Yes, sorry, that I'll talk about the Yuddha Kandam. In Yuddha Kandam, we find various instruments. In Valmiki's Ramayana, we find the instruments used in warfare, which are as follows: Bheri, Dundubi, Mridanga, Panava, Swastika. Swastika was a metallic instrument, Shankar, and Turya. Turya was trumpet kind of thing. In Kambaramayana, in Yuddha Kandam, the verse has many musical instruments: Kumbigai, Timilai, Chendai, Kuradu, Ma Bheri. That Bheri was Ma Bheri, so huge in size. Kodukotti, Pambai, Murasam, Shankam, Pandil. Pandil again, it seems to be a metallic instrument. Por Panavam, it was called as Por Panavam. Turiyam, Kambali, Tudi, Urumai, Takkai, Karadigai, Udukai, Ambali, Kanuvai. In a verse of 5 to 6 lines, we have so many instruments. So common instruments that we could see from Valmiki's Ramayana and Kamba Ramayana: Bheri, Shankar, Panava, and Turya. These 4 instruments we find in common between Valmiki's Ramayana and Kamba Ramayana. Yes. Before that, I will also like to quote Nati Shastra, but Rashmi Ma'am was also talking about that. The Kuttapa, that is the music ensemble, the group of musical instruments. The Natya includes the components of dance, music, and drumming. The term Kuttapa is met with the Nati Shastra, which denotes the ensemble. 3 Kuttapas, namely the Natya Kuttapa, Tata Kuttapa, and Avanadda, all the combination of instruments. We also have beautiful description of Veena playing techniques in Nati Shastra, which were termed as Dhatus. And there were 4, which again branched out to many varieties. One of its kind being Vyanjana Dhatu, usage of the fingers, usage of first only the index finger, or usage of the thumb. Similarly, we have 10 varieties which are being beautifully described in Nati Shastra. And coming to the Tamil tradition, I would start with Tolkappiyam. We heard Pramila ma'am talking about the 5 different regions. The regions which are divided as Kurunji, the hilly or mountainous region. Each 5 region are associated with a particular type of yard and particular type of drum, or the parai. So I have just given the names. Kurunji, the hilly or mountainous region, it had Kurunji Yard and Tondagappari. Next, Mullai, the forest area, the yard was Mullai Yard and Yerkotpari. And coming to the Marudam, the paddy fields, Marudha Yard and Nellarikinai and Manamulavu. And coming to the coastal area, which was the Neidal, we have Villari Yard, Mean Kotpare, mean associated with the ocean kind of thing, Navai Pambai. And the final, the last one, Pale, which is named as Pale, we have the Pale Yard and Tudi. Yes, next. So I finish this and moving to the Sangam literature. We have innumerable references to various kind of instruments. I would just give the verse from one or two works. We find many stringed instruments, namely the Tadari, Vayir, Mattari, Maguli, Sillari, Pambai, Kottu, and so on. In the work Natrinai, there is a description that in the mountainous region, the rains are so welcoming that the sound of the bees resemble the music of the yard. And the rhythmic accompaniment for this melody was provided by the sound of the waterfalls. So you could just think of that picturization. And in Agananuru, there is one verse, Yanai Mulakkisai Veriyi. The sounds of the animal, elephant sound is compared to that of Mudavu. Next, the sound of the toad, Tere, we would say in Tamil, though it was not pleasant, it's compared to that of the sound made by the instrument Palliyam. The intervals of the toad sound is related with some rhythmic pattern. Tere Voliyin Mana Cheeramaithu Killari Karangum Siru Palliya Todu. And in Nedinal Vade, there is one reference of the instrument I had mentioned earlier, Vayir. The sound of the Vayir resembled the sound made by the peacock. Kalimayil Agavum Vayir Marul Innisai. Next, I would quote from one of the Bhakti literature. We have Karekal Ammayar. Her works are placed in the 11th Tirumurai out of the Pannir Tirumurai. She was one among the 63 Nayanmars and one among the 3 female Nayanmars out of the whole 63. The other 2 being Mangeri Karasiyar and Isaignaniyar. It is believed that Karekal Ammayar was the first one to mention the Tamil names for the Saptaswaras, what we call Satcha Rishabha. I would read the verse, it is given there. Tuttam Kaikilai Vilari Taram Ulai Ili Osai Pan Keduma Padi Satchari. From this we have the names of the instruments. Satchari, Kokkarai, Takkayodu, Tagunidam, Dundubi, Talam, Veenai, Mattalam, Karadigai, Vankai, Mentrol, Damarugam, Kudamura, Mundai, Vasi, Tattani, Viravinodu, Adum, Engal Appan, Idam, Thiru, Alankade. This is from the Thiruvalangatu, Mutta Tirupadigam. Karekal Ammayar's works was referred to as Mutta Tirupadigam because it was more earlier when compared with the other Tevarakaras. Even in Nalayara Divya Prabandham, in Periyarvar's Pasuram, we have the mentioning of Kudal, Mulavam, Kinnaram, Veenai. And from Tirupugal, we have the Chandam kind of pattern, and we have also the rhythmic syllables. One Tirupugal on Kanchipuram, I would just read that verse alone. Diddimit, Dimit, Tanattanattam, Mootu, Sitru, Udukkai, Settai, Tavil, Beri, Thikku. The verse goes on. Yes, next. And Silappadigaram, one of the major source. Yesterday we have had the talk of Sri Madhusudanan. He was talking to us about the Silappadigaram. So much of description with reference to yard is being given in Silappadigaram. Not just the yard, we have also references to the qualities and qualifications of each musician, singer. Kudal Asiriyan Amaidi, Yard Asiriyan Amaidi, Tannumai Asiriyan Amaidi. Tannumai refers to the percussive instrument. The parts of yard, the methods and techniques to handle the instrument are described. Similarly, the description of Kudal is also seen in the commentary of Adiyar Kanallar. I would just read the instrument's name. Berigai, Padaga, Midakkai, Udukai, Madalam, and goes on. I have given the list, which we can see. And coming to, I'm going back and forth, and I would just move on to the treatises, which give information about the musical instruments. We would find a separate chapter dedicated for musical instruments, generally termed as Vadhya Adhyaya. The fourth segment, Vinoda Vimshati, in the work Manasollasa, describes the various Vadhyas, the Lakshanas, the Patas. Patas is, Padangalnu solrom, the syllables or the exercises for each instrument, and the Chaturvida Vadhyani is being quoted frequently in Manasollasa. So we understand that there were four kind of instruments. And yes, next please. And we have this monumental work, Sangita Ratnakara of Sharangadeva. When talking about Sharangadeva, I was just reminded when Radha Ma'am was talking in the morning, she was mentioning about S. Rajam sir's works. Rajam sir, while portraying Sharangadeva, he has associated him with one instrument, a harp kind of instrument. Probably that would be Nishanka Veena, which is believed to have been invented by Sharangadeva himself. So I was just reminded of Rajam sir, how beautifully he has thought to depict Sharangadeva. He is alone seen with holding an instrument. So we have various types of Veenas, Ekatantri, Nakula, Tritantri. Nishanka Veena is the string instrument that I was mentioning, is believed to have been constructed by Sharangadeva. We have many skinned instruments, wind instruments. I think I would just skip. And when talking about Sangeeta Makaranda, there are 18 types of Veena. Yes. So coming to folk art form, we have folk art forms associated and given names based on the instrument. We have Kai Chilambatam, which is again an instrument. Tappatam, Tappu is an percussion instrument, drum kind of thing. Villupattu, we know. Magudatam, Magudi is also one instrument. Udukkadi Pattu or Udukkai Pattu. So we see that the art form itself gains the name from the name of the instrument. So having all said this, so what is the present status or what is happening to the instruments, all these instruments? Yes, we do have museums in Chennai, Delhi, Kolkata, and even in other foreign countries. I think in London we have a dedicated section for musical instruments of India in Victoria Museum. And in Chennai, at the Tamil Isai Sangam, they have created Tol Isai Kalanjiam, which is a gallery of musical instruments, the age-old musical instruments. Apart from Indian instruments, I believe that there is one or two instruments from the Japanese tradition as well. In our department, we also maintain a gallery which consists of the instruments, which was part of Professor Sambamurthy's collection. He was former professor and head. We do have the Pradarshana Veena, the Beri, and many other instruments. I would give that detail in a separate thing. And we have many authors writing on musical instruments. B.C. Deva, C.R. Day, S.M. Tagore. S.M. Tagore, he has written a book, Short Notices of Musical Instruments, in which he gives almost 44 string instruments, 51 percussion instruments, 44 string instruments, and 32 wind instruments. And we have the artisans. When talking about musical instruments, I cannot leave out the artisans, especially Nadaswaram, we can say, that is being created in a village called Narasingapetai near Kumbakonam. And the present status that Nadaswaram is made out of Acha Maram. I think in English, I don't know the exact name, it is also called as Anjan tree. Earlier it was very easily accessible. Now it has been, there are many middlemen who take away that wood, and the artisans themselves have to pay a lot to get access of that wood. Acha Maram, that is the ideal wood for making Nadaswaram, not just the fresh wood. Nearly 70 to 80 years old tree, the trunk was taken for making Nadaswaram. Of course, we have got the GI tag for Narasingapetai Nadaswaram couple of years back. What does the rural to the urban world? I think the folklore has maintained or kept intact various instruments that I have been talking about. At least the drum varieties, we have still the folk instruments that are being maintained in various parts of the country. So what is happening today? We have the electronic instruments, the modern instruments. We also have the natural materials being replaced with synthetic stuff or fiber, so on. And the natural sounds of the instruments are being reproduced in one, what is called as rhythm pad, which is being used. We have all the tones being fed in that, just at the click of one button, we get the sounds of this instrument. I don't know whether this is a transformation or a transgression. That is up to you. So I think I'm still now. So I just wanted to mention the names and what is the importance of musical instruments according to the various scholars. I would just quote the comments of B.C. Deva in his book. He mentions the importance of musical instruments thus: if there are no musical instruments, no musicology is left, no music grammar and theory, which is again true, because right from Natya Shastra we have seen how the authors have tried to explain the concepts with the help of an instrument. We have in Natya Shastra, we have that Dhruva Veena and Chala and all the later works, that Veena has been a major part in explaining and understanding several concepts pertaining to music. He also says that development of music can be understood, impact on the music theory and practice. And we also come to understand the flora, fauna, the material world of the then society. Yesterday when we were just walking to the canteen, I could see lots of good trees. I was just searching for whether Acha Maram is there. And
you may find it. We have a botanist. It's not here today.
Okay.
It may be hiding somewhere.
Yeah, I understand.
Now we would be preserving it. We will not be having a gentleman commission.
That is so nice. And Professor Sambamurthy also writes that one characteristic feature of Indian musical instruments is that in both stringed and the wind group, the fingers top the strings and the finger holds directly, and there is no intervening mechanism like a key. Subtle gamakas are produced easily. Complexities in the construction of the instruments are also avoided. I think there comes the problem when we try to make it more suitable for us, the originality of the instrument goes. That is what I feel. So I feel there is transportation, transformation and transgression in some aspects with regard to the musical instruments. That in present day scenario. I would conclude with Captain Days, that is C.R. Day. This was recorded in 1891. He writes that the people of India have always been conservative in their taste, and in nothing do we find this more evident than in their music and musical instruments. So that is our rich heritage, I believe. I thank the ALRC for having me here and share my views on this wide, broad area of musical instruments. Thank you. Thank you so much.
That was a very wonderful the tracing of the history of musical instruments in our Indian tradition, starting again from the Vedic times. I think our starting point always has to be the Vedas. There's no escaping that. You cannot deny that the Vedas are non-extinct. No, they never go extinct because we keep the tradition alive. And I thank Dr. Shubhashree that she is able to bring out what the differences. Even your hands can be an instrument. Hastavat. Just your mouth, your lips can be whistling. What do you do? That's also an instrument. Okay. So she has been very beautifully bringing out, how every part of the human body itself can turn into a musical instrument. And she drew so much of references, reminding us about what we have been hearing since yesterday. Right from the time Dr. Pramila Gurumurthy started with Pannisai, where she brought in some aspects of Pannise Karavigal. And there she also mentioned about the Medic Karvi, the throat itself. Yes, and these are kind of reminders that she was able to bring in her speech. And another thing is, what are all the sculptural evidences we have about these musical instruments, especially in Belur, Halebit, all that has been done. And the Arachlur inscriptions themselves are great pointers to the, because written in early Brahmin script makes a big difference. Also, she drew everything not only from the Sanskrit literature but also from the Tamil literature. Definitely here we start with Tolkappiyam because that is the extant literature we have. And Tolkappiyam, and she went on with the Natrinai and other, this one. The beauty, she says, is Karaikal Ammayar was the first one to name the 7 swaras in the Tamil format. And that is something, which we Tamilians have to feel proud about. And the beauty is that musical instruments have their own names in folk arts, like Villupattu and other things she was talking about. And that we have a gallery for all these musical instruments is something, that is going to take us a long way in preserving what our heritage, whether it is a Tollisai Kalanjiyam or the gallery of Dr. Sambamurthy at the University of Madras. And finally, she was giving this disturbing news about how these artisans are suffering. If we need these instruments, we need, those materials for them. But even, for the Nathaswaram, that Achamaram is now being handled only by middlemen. And it is not only that, it is for all other instruments also. And then, getting into unnecessary controversy as to the great Mridangam Vidwan was simply drawn in and dragged into a controversy as to the height that was being used on the Mridangam. I think, that is the height of any dragging, big this thing, experts into unnecessary controversy because they are only using the instrument to make us realize, the higher principles in life. But why drag them into all these little, I would say, these are all insipid and they have to be brushed aside as dust and let's keep going. But we need to do our best. Okay, the GI tag for the Achamaram is one thing that the government has been doing, but we need to protect each and everything because we don't know how each and everything, like you said, if a small string, is of one hour kuda useful irukkalam. So we don't know which reed has what property, and that belongs to us to do it, and that's what we are doing in TS, and that is why we don't allow visitors anymore unnecessarily. We protect whatever is here. We have a huge responsibility on us which we have taken upon us, and therefore we don't let visitors inside at least for a long time to come, because we want this place to preserve whatever rare things we have in the campus. And that was wonderful. Thank you very much.
The skin of the instrument had to be a live calf. So Mayalapuram decided to change it to the plastic fiberglass. And now you have AI and you're getting very mechanical production of sounds and percussions. Would you call that a transgression?
But again, according to it is a transgression, but at the same time we have to take in account the other parameters, taking the music globally. We have, Madam was also talking about the skin, what happens at the airport, all those stuff. Having that in mind, it is okay, but we must try as far as possible. Yes. But this is being, as I was talking about that rhythm pad, all the tones are being fed inside that one single board and just operate with the touch of one button. So obviously, the instant music, what we were calling fast pace, so many would prefer this electronic instrument rather than hearing to the original sound of dundubi or bheri, damarukum, whatever. So looking into that is a transgression, but we have to cope up. As far as possible, we have to do something.
a token of appreciation, I would like Ms. Nancy Secrest to offer this.